So Mr. Lindsey was wrongfully convicted and sent to Florida's death row in 2006. He endured 3 years on Florida's death row for the robbery and murder of Fort Lauderdale pawn shop owner Joanne Mazzola back in 1994. In a unanimous verdict, the Florida Supreme Court ruled in 2009 that there wasn't enough evidence to find Herman guilty of anything, much less sentence him to death, and that he did not receive a fair trial. So Mr. Lindsey was exonerated in 2009 after spending 3 years on Florida's death row. He became the 135th person to be exonerated from death row since the death penalty was reinstated in the United States. And this is in the 19th, for those of you who don't know, there was a period of time when it was illegal, the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court said, well, if you do it right, then it's legal again. And so supposedly we've been doing it right for the last 50 years. And the 23rd person to be exonerated from Florida's death row. Florida has the highest rate of exonerations from death row of any state in the nation. Herman currently resides in Columbus, Georgia, if I got that right. Mm-hmm. And he's the executive director of Witness to Innocence on the board of directors of Florida. Is it still for Floridians? Are you still on the board of directors for Floridians
yes.
For alternatives to the death penalty? And serves as an ambassador to represent justice. He hosts the online show Cruel Justice, where he interviews guests on topics related to criminal justice reform. He speaks across the United States and internationally and has given talks in Italy and Belgium. He is featured in the book, The Deprived, Innocent on Death Row by Stefan Hugh. Is that how his name's pronounced?
I guess.
Okay. All right. So unfortunately, that book is not in our public libraries in Georgia, so we need to work on that. All right. So, Mr. Lindsey, would you talk however you want to talk? We came up with this the title of "In These Cages Are Human Beings," but really, Mr. Lindsey can talk about whatever he wants to talk about. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming.
Actually, that's exactly what I want to talk about. We don't get too much exposure on individuals that are on death row or incarcerated. And most people think that they are very dangerous and inhumane, and they treat them that way. So I would like to step on that topic. First, let me, because I know I'm gonna have a little questions about my exoneration. My case was based on a person that was a prime suspect in the case, saying that I was in a holding cell with him and I confessed to him. We later found evidence and presented evidence that showed that he was the one running around town bragging about he committed the crime and killed the person in there. And we also had a couple of deputies and like 35 inmates hear him specifically saying that he lied and that me and him never had that conversation, that he was trying to get his time cut off. So originally I was sentenced to death in 2007. And in 2009, my case came, the first case in history of the state of Florida, where all 7 Florida Supreme Court judges ruled that I shouldn't have never even been convicted. So I ended up getting out, and I like to work in this environment to try to change criminal justice reform, because I learned a lot of people don't know actually what is going on. One of the things I remember, the most damaging part that lived with my life as being sentenced to death, is hearing the voice of the judge saying, "We, the people of the state of Florida, hereby sentence you to die by lethal injections." And the thing about that is half of the people in Florida, or in this case, Georgia, wouldn't even know about the case. They wouldn't even know what was going on. There was no newspaper articles or no media concerning my trial. It was like a hush trial and rushed through. And when I got exonerated, it sparked a change in my life. Sparked a change in my life. I am very happy to say I'm very happy to what happened to me. Some people say you should be bitter and things like that, but I think that I was selected by God to be a voice. I think that God took me through what He took me through to come out and be able to speak. So since I've been out, I've been dedicating myself to attending events and speaking out, letting people know what's going on in the criminal justice system. I'm the executive director of Witness Innocence. Witness Innocence is an organization put together by Sister Helen Presume, that is the author of Dead Man Walking. Some of y'all may have seen the movie. They did the play, and she did the book. She's not doing an animated portion of it, and I'm proud to say I'm part of that. Um, Her and exoneree Ray Crone um, formed our organization. Our organization takes death row exonerees and put them in places and speaking events because things are very difficult when you get out of uh, prison, especially after exoneration. There's no programs in the states that helps exonerees. The majority of the exonerees that have been sentenced don't get conversation. So what we do, we have a program that helps them with emergency funds. We got a program that send them out speaking. We pay them an honorarium and all their expenses. That will help with income. We have a social worker where they have someone they can call and talk to at any time. Now I'm gonna start with my subject. My subject is most, as I say, most people think that those that commit crimes are are these monster people. In fact, when I first went to death row, I was scared. In the streets, I was portraying this big gangster person, like I'm strong and I'm this bad person. But when I went to walking down that hall, I was scared because all I heard is in stories about these people that serial killers and things like that. Now I'm being placed among them. I am going in the same place where they are. And I was fearful because I'm like, if they don't kill somebody, they might kill me. You know, I was very fearful because of what I've seen in TV and what I've heard from people talking. When I was first placed in my cell, they gave me this little roll up kit of my towel, blanket, and things. And they placed me in this cell that has a little bed, toilet, and a little desk. And they slammed the door. They took the shackles off me. And I hear the guy saying, "Hey, what's your name?" I hear the guy saying, "Where are you from?" You know, and things and just asking questions, trying to get to know me. And I was just too scared to answer. I could remember laying in my bed, not even making it up. I just laid on the plastic and put my head on the little blanket things, and that was rolled up. And I just felt like I was just, I don't know what happened. After about an hour there, um, a deputy came to my door and he tried to hand me a suitcase, not a suitcase, but a pillowcase full of goodies. And I'm like, where that's from? All the inmates that was on death row took that pillowcase and it went cell to cell to cell, placing items that I may need in that cell. And the guy, I can remember the guy, Tom White, telling me, "Hey, that's for you to hold you up till your family get there. And if your family can't afford you some money, we'll shoot you something every week." And I was like shocked. So after a couple of weeks on there, I slowly went to talking to people. We don't talk about our cases on death row. You don't talk about your cases. Anybody who's convicted and trying to appeal something, don't talk about your case. So I learned that on death row, all of those individuals look at their are one big family. There's no such thing as race. There's no such thing as what you believe in. It's nothing like that. Everybody is equal. They don't attack you because of your religion. They don't attack you because of nothing. They all look out for each other. If one got a problem, Nobody eats. Everybody leave the food there. One big family. There's no, how would you say, gangster mentalities there that creates you to, have real problems. Instead, everybody just like humble. And one of the reasons is that one thing about it is people change. What you've done at when you was 20 years old, you're not going to be that same person when you're 34, 35 and older, especially if you're doing time. Another thing is we have individuals that comes into the prison and ministers. No matter what your religion is if someone comes in there and help you, with your spiritual journey. And that also changes a lot of individuals when they find out. Because think about it, we have no time to be, we don't have to rush off somewhere. So we got time to sit there and read and, it's, you don't get visitors. So half of the people don't get visitors. So they like someone
I
to talk to,
think I'm fine.
other than the
Just
guards.
watch.
And it's like
So
people
you can
change.
have your computer
A
back.
lot of times I like to go to speaking events. Unfortunately, they always send out advertisement with my picture on it. But I like to sit among people and talk among people. And they wouldn't believe that they talked to someone that actually been on death row. That person that was accused of murder. I understand I was innocent, but just like I am now, those that are guilty are the same way. A lot of them remorse for what they've done. You got some that, I can't sugarcoat it, some that just mentally insane and, they brag about what they've done, you know. But in reality, I found that even those that brag about what in reality is from the trauma that they went through. A lot of these individuals, you have to understand, has been through a lot of trauma.
I'm not
For
having
instance, we had a
luxury
case where
lying down
in
on the
Texas, I think her
bonnet.
name was Melissa or something like that. This woman had been abused all her life.
I
Her
what do
family
you
married her
want
off
your
to a
computer?
guy that
I'm fine.
constantly beat her,
Thanks.
put her in the closet, treated her like she was some type of worse than you treat a pet, caged her up. She run to the police. The police say they can't do nothing about it. You're married. Take her back home.
Why isn't the
A woman
volume
just ran to the
working?
police station and saying how,
Oh,
and she
yes,
got
it
all these
is.
bruises, and you just take her and put her back in there.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Imagine a person going through that, years and years of that,
Thank you very
how
much.
they're in their head, how
You
they
realize
are
how
hurting.
your picture is
Nobody they could
wandering
believe they
around.
turned to. How would you
Yeah,
feel?
I'm gonna go sit down.
Okay.
It's like, and this is even though I'm talking about the death penalty cases, but this is happening to people that's getting a year in prison, a person that's getting 3 years in prison. Us in society, we don't address trauma like we should be addressing trauma. We don't address mental illness. And sometimes if a person can't pay their light bill and they got kids, women, they got kids, they're working, they're trying their best, they done got laid off. That is trauma. That is a stressful situation where this woman is trying to figure out how to get their lights on in there. And then some of these programs right giving them the run around can't help. The people in society talking about her. That is trauma. So now this young woman go out and steal some food. She get 3 years in prison. She's considered a monster. Is that fair? Is that really fair to people? And the thing about it is that when I was in school and throughout our lives when we were young, we ask what we want to be when we grow up. A lot of us have dreams. I wanted to be an attorney, and I probably why I was cursed to be in the justice system. But I wanted to be an attorney, and or an architect. I like drawing buildings. I never raised my hand and say I wanted to be a death row exoneree. I never raised my hand and said I wanted to be on death row. And none of these individuals that go to jail and none of these individuals that get sentenced to death is raising their hand. In fact, we shouldn't even have the death penalty, period, because it's you cannot say you haven't executed an innocent person. And I've seen states execute people that got strong claims of innocent. In Texas, we had the Willingham case where they said he burned up his family, and come to find out it was caused by a faulty wire. But this prosecutor in that state wanted to prosecute this case so bad, fight new experts and technology came in speaking up for him and everything, and they still executed it. What was the purpose? What was the purpose? And most people don't realize that those that are guilty on death row, after they done spent that time on death row, a lot of them waive their appeal so they can be executed. Because think about it, if you put them to death, they got no more worries. They get their life right with God and they ready to go. It's a sad story, but that is how it truly is. One of the greatest things that kept me insane because sending themselves 23 hours, 24 hours a day. When they say 23 hours lockdown, that's just full. You lock down 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Only reason they say 23 hours a day is because they take you out your cell, put you in a cage, and let you have recreation out in the sun with yourself for a couple of days, for a couple of hours, like 2 hours. And that's if the guard feel like doing it. Then they count the hour they bring you out for the 30 minute. They bring you out like 3 times, 4 times a week for showers, and that 30 minutes in the cold water, which half of us don't like to take, so we just make water in our cell and bathe in our cell. So it's when they said 23 hours lockdown, no, a person is 24. So imagine yourself locked in your bedroom in punishment, no electronics, no communication, and you're doing that for years. Would you still be able to be a person with sanity that in your right state of mind? Would you still be able to function once you get out of there? This is what our system does. And the thing about it is when the system does this to us, I didn't ask to go to death row. But right now, I serve a life sentence in society. Because every time I get out for death row, I got all these news people calling me, all these organizations want me to speak, but I wasn't getting paid for any of that, right? So how do I live? So I go try to go get a job, and they run a background check. You can't get it. I got married and tried to rent a place, a nice home, for the girl I met and her 2 kids. And it's like I couldn't be on the lease because they run a background check. So I'm still being punished for something that I didn't do. Even today, 15 years later, it's still punishing me. And some people in society, I had some terrible cases where I've been interviewed for things, and the guy is so excited that he's meeting a person for death row and things like that, and then he hits you with the question. So you did it, but you just got away with it. How do you feel getting a comment like that? How do you feel getting a comment like that? That is a very depressing and hard thing to deal with in life. You're getting out, you're trying to do right, and this is being used against you, and you didn't even commit a crime. Stress, stress, stress. You know, and that stressing, I develop a aneurysm, which I'm going to an operation next month for. My blood pressure always stayed high because of stressing, because I can't understand why is this happening to me. But I know God is going to bring me through it, so I stay strong. But you're going to stress about things, especially when you're, okay, say, and I'm sure a lot of this time we didn't, all us adults, some of the young ones haven't experienced this yet. But say, for the women's, they met this nice little young guy, and the men, they met this nice young girl, right? And let's say it's a big party or they want to go to the movies coming up, but they really want to be, it's like we have some serious puppy love crushes, don't we, when we're younger, don't it? And we really want to be with that, go to spend time with that person. And your parents say no. But the reason they said no is because the cookies is missing out the cookie jar that your sister or your brother done took. You're gonna be devastated, hurt. Now magnify that by 1,000 times. That's the way I feel. But I have no anger. I have no bitterness. And one of the greatest things is that helped me through it was I had pen pals from Australia, UK, and I think the other one was Barbados. So I had time to write, and the time went by. I was getting mail, so I felt like I was special, you know. But some people don't get none of that, and it's very harsh in prison. So I encourage people to, like, if you have loved ones, friends, something like that, correspond with them. You know, one thing about a person, and I just got I've been working in the field of addiction, been addiction counselor. And one thing I learned is most people be that has the addiction, you can send them through rehab over and over. They ain't gonna change till they want to change. But if that person got somebody they know they can call upon, they can trust, they got a better chance of just stopping on their own. So my message, I don't know how much time I took.
You took about 30 minutes, but that's we still got some more time if you want to, however you want to take it.
Well, what I want to do is answer some questions that you may have, and don't worry about if it's personal or whatever we need to get you to understand where you need to be in life. So whatever questions you want to ask, please ask, and we will get an answer. My trial was 3 weeks, and I got a verdict. And my jury trial for the penalty phase it was a vote for 8-4 for me to get the death sentence instead of life. First degree murder. First, it was a lady in a pawn shop. Somebody went in and robbed, and they shot her in the head and killed her. And they charged me with um, premeditated murder, felony murder, and they always gonna charge you with both of them for one single crime. And the reason being is because if they find that it wasn't premeditated, they can use felony murder. But if they just say felony murder and then they find out it was premeditated plan, then they can charge you. They can't charge you with premeditated. So they charge you both at one time. And they charge you with robbery, but they drop robbery because the crime had actually happened 12 years before they even arrested me. Yeah, so the crime happened in 1994. They arrested me in 2006. Either one of you. Okay, so in 1994, when that pawn shop was robbed, right? I have a god brother. You know, that he grew up with his grandma. Sometimes when his grandma, the older people was like, "You're not coming in my house after dark" and stuff like that. So he would come to my house and go to sleep and stuff like that. So they believed he was involved in it. So they came to me and they was asking me questions. So I answered the questions. I took a lot of detective tests, and the only information they had was that him and his cousin committed the crime, but they didn't know exactly who was the cousin. So they questioned me. So when they questioned me, I was honest about everything. Um, Ronnie ended up pleading guilty to the murder. I was questioned about everything, and the detective that was handling the case didn't believe I was had anything involved to do with it. But in 2005, it was considered still a cold case. The new detective that took over the case went to investigate the case, and this one guy, Mark Sims, who they had a statement in 1994 from a guy named Eddie Carter saying Mark Sims was running around bragging that he committed the crime. But they went to Mark Sims to investigate. Mark Sims say, I don't know nothing about it for 12 years. Now, when this new detective go in now, he's doing federal prison time for robbing pawn shops, burglary. Him and Ronnie are both doing time for that right now. But he gave a statement saying that me and him was in the holding cell and I confessed to him that I committed the crime. And they was giving him making a deal with him to get his time cut off. You had a question?
Me?
No, I thought she had a question.
How do you ever regain trust for police?
It's how can I say this? Police have a difficult job. And prosecutors have difficult jobs. Now, at the first, I was like so like against them because I'm like, how can you arrest me for something I didn't do? But as I went to working on cases, because I work with the public defender's office in Broward to work on murder cases sometimes, doing mitigation specialist, um, I learned that sometimes people commit crimes and the state really can't prove that they committed the crime, but they got a little evidence. So what do they do when they have a situation like that? They lock them up and try to get a confession out of them and try to, solve the case instead of leaving a person that then kills the person on the streets. So once I went to working on the case and I went to talking to some of the detectives and stuff, it was in some cases it was evidence like what's your name?
Claire.
Claire, and what's your name? Okay, so Miss Claire, you went and killed the butcher, right? Because he didn't cut your meat right. Okay. Now there's no evidence of that, right? Now, Miss Linda, know you committed this crime, but she can't really say you committed that crime, right? And they arrest you because they know Miss Linda know you did this. But they trying to get the evidence on you, but they can't get the evidence. What do? So they have tactics they do to try to solve this problem. But I didn't understand this when I first got arrested. You know,
Mm.
I didn't understand that. I just looked at you pick on people and just try to throw crimes on them. You know, and being the detective in my case, we really talked, and I could see his perspective. You know, they felt like I was running cousin. He was the closest to me. Even though I never had robbery charges or anything like that, they didn't know. And then he claimed he never seen the statement that Eddie Carter gave that Mark Sims was bragging about it when he had the investigation. Some of the investigation things was wrong. Then he didn't question Ronnie Lorraine. Lorraine wouldn't speak with them. So I after we would talk and things like that, his idea was to lock me and Lorraine up and try to get one of us to tell on the other, and and it went south. The prosecutor, because and I kind of believe what he was saying, because my first day of jury trial, they actually offered me 3 years in prison in exchange for a manslaughter charge if I plead guilty, and I said no. So I can actually believe that was one of their tactics, even though I don't agree that they should be doing that. I kind of understand.
I want to close.
Every victim should have a closure. And closure comes at the time of arrest. It doesn't come at the time a person is killed. That's revenge. So it's a different and most people that's for the death penalty, they don't even understand the death penalty. And you have to think about what caused our justice system to be wrong. A lot of our issues in our justice system rely on one thing: jurors. If you ask what is the cause of wrongful convictions, you'll see it's jurors. But guess what? We're going to continue to have that problem because our jurors are undereducated. They don't know, half of them, you ask them, you got jury duty, what's beyond a reasonable doubt? They don't know. They think just because the state attorney said it's beyond reasonable doubt. That's not reasonable doubt. But the most harshest part is everybody trying to get out of jury duty. They don't want to be there. So when you're selected for jury, you're thinking about getting your hair done or your nails or something, and you're not really paying attention to the evidence. You're not understanding your rights to ask questions. And that happens in a lot of cases. That's why you see a lot of jurors come back and say things later
Yeah.
because they a lot of times they don't pay attention. Any other question?
I have a question. We came in late, so we might have missed it, but how were you exonerated?
It was evidence presented that one, that is the same witness that this, because they didn't have no fingerprints on me. They had nobody to say I committed no crime. They didn't say I was there or anything, right? It was just solely based on the guy saying I confessed to him. And we presented evidence of one that the guy Eddie Carter said that the state witness was bragging about it in '94. Then you got the fact that 4 officers, BSO officers, and 35 inmates heard him saying that me and him never talked. He was trying to get his time cut off. And then we had Ronnie Lorray. He had wrote a letter to his judge that I couldn't use in trial because Ronnie Lorray couldn't testify in my trial because he had an open case. But he wrote a letter to his judge saying that he wanted to fire his lawyer because his lawyer isn't working on his case. His lawyer is just trying to get him to take a plea bargain and lie on me. So he told the judge back then that I wasn't involved in this, that and so with all of that, the Florida Supreme Court looked at that and the fact that the key witness in Ronnie LaRay was already locked up for pawn shops and robbery, pawn shops all around that place. In fact, they had one case where they seen Mark Sims reach over the counter at the clerk after the clerk politely handed him the money. He still shot the clerk. So with all of that incorporated, the Florida Supreme Court was saying, hey, it seemed more like Mark Sims committed this crime than Mr. Lindsey, who has no connections to it, has no motive for it, So Florida Supreme Court, all 7 judges ruled, and that's unusual because they usually one judge or something disagree.
Yeah. I hope I can say this and make sense.
Say it straight out.
um, a friend of mine is in Jackson, Georgia, in the death penalty in the prison for those who have the death penalty. My friend knows that he is innocent. He didn't explain that, but it was just a confidentiality kind of thing. I'm sure. And so when I asked, okay, he's innocent, then what's being done, to help him be released, to be exonerated, actually. And my friend said that he has good lawyers. He's already been in prison. I looked it up this morning. He's already been in prison for 34 years. No, or 24, if I did wrong. But anyway, my friend said that he has good lawyers, but that any time, and I don't know how to say this right, but any time that they take his case to court, that it's like the judges in the court just don't want to have anything to do with it. They're just sort of determined, it sounds like, that, he's guilty. Do you have any recommendation for what could be done to help him?
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm thankful the Innocent Project is out. They review cases. See, one of the biggest problems is you have a lot of judges that just say the jury done found him guilty, let it be. And if people haven't timely filed their motions and things like that, they got procedurally barred, so the issue cannot be brought up again or something like that. And it could be a case where your lawyer brought up this issue that you should be treated as you was innocent, but he presented it wrong. So now when it's time to bring it back up, it's difficult to bring that back up because it was like already addressed, as they would say. And being in prison that long time, they would also say why you didn't address this on the motion before. So our court procedures are very uh, more protective of the system getting it wrong than protecting the individual that's should be innocent until proven guilty, which we know that's the backwards case. So, the lawyers, if they're a good lawyer, they know the people to reach out to. But one of the things that we do at Witness the Innocent and FADP and GFADP and all the organizations I'm tied to, I'm on the board about 6 different organizations. Uh, Sometimes what help is bringing media attention to the crime because the judges and everybody are elected officials and they care about what the public is thinking. If the public is thinking, see, that's why when you got the high profile shooting cases and stuff like that, judges tend to just push that on through to favor the state in all ways because there's so much publicity about it and so many families are, upset. Um, so our system just need work, but they need to just keep pressing the courts and and then we got to look at the fact that we have governors and presidents that put people in the Supreme Courts and the big appeal courts that's in favor of prosecution. You got prosecutors as judge. Judge is supposed to be neutral. But if you got a prosecutor as a judge, he's going to favor the prosecution. So it's complicated. But they need to keep fighting, get with the Innocent Project of that area, which we have an Innocent Project here in Georgia. And I forgot her name. I think her name is Anna is the ED. So, and that would try to bring some light or get some media attention around it, you know.
Thank you.
Which do you think is more problematic, flawed justice system or human error?
That is a good question, but I'm gonna tell you it's a simple question. You know what the simple answer to that is? Our justice system is the best justice system in the world. We got the best. Girl, you can rail your eyes, but let me. But listen, because this is true. Our justice system guarantee due process. Some places don't. Now, what happens is the individuals that are working in our system, such as judges, prosecutors, law enforcement officers, abusing it and taking it and construing it the way they need it to be construed. Because what you have to understand is prosecutors and attorneys, they get promotions by the more cases they solve. So they get an incentive. And majority of them are immune to lawsuits. So with that being intact, I could become a prosecutor and I could be the one that seek justice. And you have lot of my cases will be fair and but then you got some that wants to seek a political career afterward or seek the judge and they're gonna do whatever they need to do to get more convictions. So it's more of not human error. How can I pronounce? What word can I use?
Negligence.
It's
The incentives
the-
Integrity.
human greed. We'll put it that way: human greed and disregard to human life. Right.
Part two. Do you think it would be better if you just start telling people who were losing against the system and start playing the wicked? Since,
Repeat that question.
for anybody that's losing against the system, just recommend that they start playing the wicked and not care.
I'm not understanding that one. You play to win. And when we get, that's my son. So he know when I get home, I'm gonna get him for asking me these difficult questions. Okay, so let me get an understanding. You're saying that somebody that is losing, you start playing as the win. No, what I recommend is people need to start standing by their loved ones that is being subject to the judicial system. You know, a lot of times when people go to jail, their family talks about them, this, you know, just push them off to the side. But if you notice cases that have family members inside the courtroom go a whole lot better for the defendant than it would if he has nobody there. So it's ways we can kind of balance it out. You know, it's ways we can balance out. And if you notice, anytime the public start raising the issue and speaking out against a case, the case mostly go in the favor of the defendant. You know, it's all about the media, the and I'm gonna put it commonly, the pressure on the judge. So if the judge knows that the public is paying attention to this case, he's gonna react to the public perspective. But you might walk home. Go ahead.
So how old were you when you got convicted and how long were you in prison?
I got convicted. I had was doing a 12-year sentence anyway, so I got convicted at 21 for trafficking cocaine. And while I finished that, they turned around and charged me with the murder when I was going home from prison, and I did another 3 years on the murder case. Yeah.
I'm sorry, just Tony Wall had a question. Tony Wall, did you have a question?
Yes, it's just historically eventual what happened in this country with the immigrants, especially those that come with no paper or they overstay their visa. I wonder if you have thought about all the things happening in this country, in this moment, with the humans in cages. And sometimes for reasons they have no control because they came since they were kids. And I was wondering if you have thought about the situation in this country now.
This sums it up, and excuse me for saying this. This problem is a one man problem, and it's displaying racism all over it. It's not racism just against people of color. It's been prejudice against a lot. And what it all stems out of from, and nobody really pay attention, and it's just my opinion, is that when Trump was elected the first time, Trump had a problem with some cartels. After that, we had a problem with the cartels, and he got out of office. Uh, Things will simmer down. But when Trump got re-voted, that's the first thing he went at is the cartels. So when he first went at the cartels, he want to get individuals that's from other countries out of here. You understand what I'm saying? So he has a private agenda that he's doing to discriminate these individuals because America, if we supposed to be the land of the free, and we have individuals here that has visas that done expired, or we have individual that shouldn't be here, we shouldn't, and they running from their country, and that's one of our constitutions that had it where we protect these people. We shouldn't be changing it and locking them up for in cages and trying to put them on planes and pushing them out. What we should be doing is trying to figure out how we can get all their information up to date. That's what we should be doing here in America. So that's my opinion on that.
What do you think the death penalty for people who are violent, opinion, actually vile, like the guy who shot up that church in Charleston or the Boston bomber?
See, I don't agree with life without parole. I don't agree with life. They get a life sentence, I can understand it, but it should have parole because I believe in rehabilitation. But let me ask you this question, right? If it's your mother,
Yes.
okay, so if your son have a dog or a pet and he pass away, what do you tell him?
I told him I passed away.
Okay, and a person that got cancer or anything like that, what would you tell him?
They have cancer. I would tell him, am I telling the person or am I telling his
Him.
son? Well, his grandma had cancer a few years ago, so he's told straight up. This is what she has, and she's fighting it. We can keep it from him.
In most cases, people say when their loved ones and stuff like that has passed through cancer and stuff, is hey, they're going off to a better place. There's no more pain and suffering, right? So just say the two cases you used, the guy is that was in Carolina where he shot up the church, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. And the bombing. Just say we get these individuals that done did this harsh crime, and we send them and have them executed 5 years later. What consequences did they suffer? They don't have to go through no more pain, no more stress, or anything. When they're in prison, they have to worry about being raped, stabbed, killed, all of that. So the death penalty is just a waste of taxpayers' money. It's no deterrent to crime. And you also have to understand when you dealing with the death penalty, politicians use that a way to create fear in society to get people to vote for them being tough on crime because they are not worried about a person's life. So for me, I think the death penalty shouldn't even be intact. And I'm gonna show you another primary reason. If you see majority of the people that go commit the mass crimes, mass murders, and shootings and stuff like that, those are individuals that have some type of mental illness in their past and their background. But majority of them, instead of letting themselves get arrested, they either kill themselves or make the police kill them because they don't want to do the time in prison. So if they get killed, they don't have to worry about suffering. They don't pay no consequences. So the death penalty is not something that is an act of justice. It's an act of revenge, and it's an act of political, a tool used in a political fight to instill fear to people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lindsey. Appreciate the time